The accusation echoed through the Hall of Mirrors like a death knell. Human Ambassador James Westbrook has violated the sacred protocol of Kevari. He has looked upon the Queen's unveiled face. James stood frozen in the center of the hall, surrounded by 300 Kevari nobles, whose compound eyes reflected his image back at him in fractured multiplicity. He had not looked. He had been examining the star map on the wall when the Queen's veil had slipped. He had immediately averted his gaze. But the High Priest had seen what he wanted to see. Queen Ishara Valkavos descended from her throne, her ceremonial veil now firmly in place. The fabric shimmered with bioluminescent threads, obscuring her features completely. She moved like water given form, her four-armed silhouette casting long shadows in the crystalline light. "You understand the penalty," she said. Her voice was cool, precise, utterly devoid of emotion. "I did not." Silence. The word cracked like a whip. "You have shamed this court. You have shamed humanity's fragile standing in our concord. And you have shamed me," the nobles murmured. James caught fragments. Typical human arrogance. They should never have been granted embassy status. Execute him, and be done with it. James had served as Earth's ambassador to the Kevari Concord for 2 years. 2 years of learning their impossible etiquette, their Byzantine hierarchies, their religious prohibitions that seemed designed to trap outsiders. He had made no mistakes. He had been careful, so careful. And now he would die for something he hadn't done. "High Priest Moreth," the Queen continued, turning to the skeletal figure who had made the accusation, "what punishment does tradition demand?" "Death by solar exposure, your radiance." "His skin will burn, his eyes will boil, and his soul will be scattered to the void." James felt his stomach drop. The Kevari homeworld orbited a blue giant. Unprotected exposure meant being cooked alive in minutes. "A fitting end for human presumption," someone muttered. The Queen was silent for a long moment. James watched her veiled face, searching for any hint of what lay beneath. He had spent 2 years wondering. The Kevari showed their faces only to family and chosen intimates. To see a queen's face unbidden was considered a violation of her very soul. "No," the Queen said. The hall went silent. "Your radiance?" High Priest Moreth's voice carried an edge of warning. "The human is more useful alive than dead. Earth's resources are not insignificant, and we have treaties pending." She gestured with 2 of her hands, a Kevari expression of dismissive practicality. "He will serve as my personal attendant. A living symbol of human submission to Kevari superiority. He will follow me, serve me, and never speak unless spoken to." For 10 cycles. The nobles erupted in shocked whispers. James stared at the Queen, trying to understand what had just happened. "Your radiance," Moreth pressed. "This is unprecedented. To have a human, an offender, in such proximity to your person, are you questioning my judgment, High Priest?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Moreth's chitin paled. "Never, your radiance. Then it is decided." The Queen turned to James, and though he could not see her face, he felt the weight of her gaze. "You will be silent. You will be invisible. And you will remember, every moment, every day, that your life belongs to me now." She swept past him, close enough that the edge of her robe brushed his hand. As she passed, her voice dropped to a whisper that only he could hear. "Come to my private garden at midnight. Tell no one." And then she was gone, leaving James standing in a hall full of enemies, wondering if he had just been saved, or merely handed a more elaborate death sentence. The Queen's private garden existed in a pocket of perpetual twilight, shielded from the killing radiation of the blue sun. Bioluminescent flowers provided soft illumination, their colors shifting through spectrums that human eyes could barely perceive. James found her standing beside a pool of liquid mercury, her veil discarded. He froze. She was beautiful, in an utterly alien way. Her skin was the deep purple of a bruised plum, textured with subtle patterns that caught the flower light. Her eyes, all 6 of them, were the color of molten gold, arranged in a pattern that human geometry couldn't quite process. She had no nose, but delicate slits along her jaw fluttered as she breathed. "You may look," she said. "That is why I called you here." James forced his legs to carry him forward. "Your radiance, Ishara. In this garden, I am simply Ishara." She turned to face him fully, and he saw the exhaustion in those golden eyes. "You are wondering why I spared you, among other things. You did not look at me in the hall. I was watching your reflection in the mirrors. When my veil slipped, you turned away." She paused. "No Kevari male has ever done that. They always look. They always want to possess what they see. I was trying to respect your customs." "I know. That is precisely the problem." She sat on a curved bench, gesturing for him to join her. He did, maintaining careful distance. Morath arranged for my veil to slip. He has been trying to compromise me for years, to create a scandal that would weaken my position and strengthen the priesthood. Today he thought he had succeeded. But you turned it against him. I made you my servant. Now, if any scandal emerges about improper contact between us, it is expected rather than forbidden. I have neutralized his weapon. James absorbed this, so I'm a political shield. You are many things, James Westbrook. She looked at him directly, and he felt pinned by those 6 golden eyes. You are also the only person in this palace who has seen my face and not tried to use it against me. I've only seen it for 30 seconds. That is 30 seconds more than my own council. More than my priests. More than the nobles who scheme for my hand. Her voice hardened. They do not want me. They want the throne I sit upon. The power I represent. The queen they could control if they could only get close enough. And what do you want? The question hung in the twilight air. No one asked Kevari queens what they wanted. They were symbols, not people. Vessels of tradition, not beings with desires. Ishara was quiet for a long moment. I want someone to talk to, she finally said. Someone who sees me as I am, not as what I can give them. Someone who has nothing to gain from my favor and nothing to fear from my displeasure. She looked at him. Publicly, she chose me as her public enemy. Privately, she chose me as her confidant. You understand, don't you? Why it had to be this way? James nodded slowly. If you had simply pardoned me, it would have looked like weakness. By making me your servant, you appear strong while keeping me close. And if I am seen to despise you publicly, no one will suspect that we speak privately. Her mouth curved in something that might have been a smile. You humans are not as foolish as they say. Some of us are. I'm just stubborn. Tell me about Earth, she said abruptly. Tell me what it is like to walk under a yellow sun without burning. Tell me what rain feels like on skin that doesn't crack under moisture. Tell me. She stopped, and James saw something he had never expected to see in a Kevari queen. Loneliness. Raw, desperate loneliness. Tell me anything, she whispered. I have not had a real conversation in 6 years. So James told her. He told her about mountains and oceans and forests. He told her about snow, which she found terrifying and fascinating in equal measure. He told her about music that wasn't performed for ceremonies, books that weren't religious texts, humor that wasn't designed to flatter. He told her about the coffee shop, where he used to meet his sister every Sunday before the ambassador posting. About the dog he'd left with his neighbor. About the way Earth's moon looked when you were far from city lights. Ishara listened with all 6 eyes fixed on him, her 4 arms wrapped around herself like she was holding something precious close to her chest. When the garden's automated lights began to shift toward dawn spectrum, signaling that their time was ending, she stood. You will come again tomorrow night, she said. It was not a question. Yes, good. She retrieved her veil, and in an instant, the woman disappeared, and the queen returned. In public, you will be silent and invisible, as I commanded. You will endure whatever humiliations my court devises for you. And you will give them no reason to suspect that you are anything other than a broken man serving his sentence. I understand. She paused at the garden's edge, her back to him. James, yes, thank you. For turning away. Then, she was gone. The months that followed were the hardest of James's life. By day, he was the queen's shadow, present at every function, every council meeting, every religious ceremony. He stood in corners, while nobles mocked him. He knelt on hard floors while priests lectured about human inferiority. He ate servants' scraps, and slept in a cell barely large enough to lie down. And through it all, he remained silent, invisible, broken as far as the court could tell. By night, he lived. The garden became their sanctuary. Ishara would shed her veil and her throne voice, and they would talk for hours. She asked endless questions about humanity, their wars and their art, their religions and their sciences, their strange insistence on individual rights over collective harmony. James learned about her too. He learned that she had been crowned at 19 when her mother died of a genetic illness that killed all Kevari queens eventually. He learned that she had been alone ever since, surrounded by servants and advisors, but never touched, never comforted, never seen. He learned that Kevari did not cry. Their biology didn't permit tears. But he learned to recognize when Ishara's breathing patterns meant she was grieving anyway. One night, after she had recounted another council meeting where Morath had proposed a political marriage to a high lord 3 times her age, James found himself reaching for her hand without thinking. She flinched. He pulled back immediately. I'm sorry, I forgot. No. Her voice was strange. Do it again. He hesitated, then slowly extended his hand. She stared at it like it was a foreign artifact. Touch is sacred to us, she said. We only touch mates, family, those we would die for. She looked at him. In 10 months, you have never tried to touch me. Not once. I didn't want to presume. You are not Kevari. The rules do not apply to you. They apply to you. They apply to you. And He stopped, unsure how to finish. You what? I didn't want to be like them, he admitted. Everyone who wants something from you. Everyone who sees you as a means to an end. You said you wanted someone who saw you. I've been trying to actually see you. Not just take what I wanted. Ishara's golden eyes flickered through colors he had never seen before, emotions he had no names for. Then, slowly, deliberately, she reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, the texture like fine silk over firm muscle. Her fingers had one more joint than his, and they wrapped around his hand with a precision that felt almost engineered. I have never held anyone's hand before, she said. Is this correct? James felt something crack open in his chest. This powerful, ancient, lonely queen, asking him if she was holding his hand correctly. Yes, he said softly. That's exactly right. They sat like that until dawn, hands intertwined, saying nothing and everything. But happiness in the Kevari court was always borrowed time. A week later, Morath made his move. He burst into the Queen's council chamber with a contingent of temple guards, proclaiming that he had evidence of unnatural congress between the Queen and her human servant. The sacred bond has been defiled, he declared. The Queen has taken a human as a mate. Ishara stood slowly, her face invisible behind her veil. And what evidence do you possess, High Priest? Morath smiled. Witnesses who have seen you touch the human. Who have seen you speak with him in private. Who have seen looks pass between you that belong only between bonded pairs. The council erupted. Nobles shouted accusations. Guards reached for weapons. James felt his life narrowing to a single point. And then, Ishara laughed. The sound cut through the chaos like a blade. She had never laughed in public before. The court fell silent in shock. You accuse me of taking a human mate, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. A human? A creature whose lifespan is barely a century. A being so primitive, they still fight wars over resource distribution. A species so beneath us that we granted them embassy status only out of pity. She turned to James, and her voice turned cold. Look at him. Broken. Pathetic. Serving his sentence in silence. And you believe I would lower myself to touch such a creature? Each word was a knife. James understood what she was doing. He understood it was necessary. But as she spoke, he saw something else, the slight tremor in her hands. The tension in her posture. The way her veil shifted as though her face beneath was fighting to remain still. She was protecting him the only way she could. By destroying him in public, while her heart broke in private. I demand an inspection, Morath pressed. Let the Queen remove her veil. Let us see if she has been marked by human contact. The court held its breath. The marking, a biochemical reaction Kevari experienced when they bonded with a Métis, would be visible on her face. If she had touched James with intent, with feeling, the mark would prove it. Ishara's hands rose to her veil. James stepped forward before he could stop himself. No. Every eye turned to him. He had not spoken in public in 10 months. The human speaks? Morath's voice was triumphant. Against orders? Another violation to add to his crimes. Inspect me instead, James said. His voice was steady, though his heart hammered. If the Queen had touched me with intent, there would be traces. On my skin. In my blood. Test me. Not her. James, no. Ishara's voice broke through her controlled facade. My life was forfeit the moment Morath made his accusation. Let me make it mean something. He turned to face her, and though he couldn't see her eyes, he hoped she could read his. You gave me 10 months of being seen. Of being real. That's more than most people get in a lifetime. Ishara was trembling now. The court could see it. Morath could see it. How touching. The high priest sneered. The human sacrifices himself for his queen. Very well. We will test you both. And when the truth is revealed, enough. The new voice came from the council entrance. Lord Sovereign Kethros, Ishara's uncle, the only family she had left, strode into the chamber. Behind him came a contingent of royal guards. I have reviewed the temple's evidence, Kethros announced. Manufactured surveillance, bribed witnesses, and most interestingly, he held up a data crystal. Communications between High Priest Morath and the hegemony of Rax, discussing terms for Ishara's removal, and Kevar's subjugation. The chamber exploded. The trial of High Priest Morath lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming. Years of conspiracy, assassination attempts, foreign collusion. He was sentenced to solar exposure. the same fate he had tried to arrange for James. But that was politics. That was justice. That wasn't what mattered to James. What mattered was the night after the trial ended, when Ishara summoned him to the garden for the last time. She stood by the mercury pool, her veil already removed. In the bioluminescent glow, he could see the changes the past year had wrought, a softness around her eyes that hadn't been there before, a looseness in her posture that spoke of burdens lifted, and on her left cheek, a faint tracery of silver lines. The marking, the proof of bonding, that she had hidden beneath her veil for months. "You knew," James said, when Moreth demanded the inspection. "You knew the mark would be there. I felt it form the night you held my hand." She touched her cheek. I had never touched anyone with intent before. I didn't know it would happen so quickly. So irrevocably. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to feel obligated. Because I didn't know if humans could feel the same thing. Because, she laughed, and there was something raw in it, because I was terrified, James. For the first time in my life, I had something I was afraid to lose. James crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. He took her hands, both sets of them, and pulled her close. "I don't have biochemical markings," he said. "Humans bond differently, messier, less certain. We don't get proof that what we feel is real." He released one of her hands to touch her marked cheek. "But if I could choose any mark in the universe, any proof that I belonged to someone, I would choose this. I would choose you." Ishara's eyes flickered through every color he had ever seen, and a few he hadn't. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I love you. I'm saying that I don't care about species or politics or what the galaxy thinks. I'm saying that for 10 months, you were my confidant, my friend, and the only person who made me feel like I was home." He smiled. "I'm saying that you chose me as your public enemy and your private confidant. And I'm choosing you right back. For everything. Forever. Humans don't live forever. Then we'd better not waste time." Ishara pulled him closer, her forearms wrapping around him with a fierce possessiveness that made his heart soar. Their foreheads touched, a Kevari gesture of absolute trust. "My council will be horrified," she murmured. "Your uncle seemed to approve. My people will question my judgment. Your people just watched you survive a coup. They'll follow you anywhere. The other species will call me mad. Let them. You're the queen of Kevar. You can be as mad as you want." She laughed again, and this time, it was pure joy. "You ridiculous human. You're ridiculous human," he corrected. Ishara kissed him then, not with her mouth, which Kevari didn't use for affection, but with a brush of her facial slits against his cheek, her breath warm and strange and somehow perfect. "Mine," she agreed. "Publicly and privately. For as long as the stars burn." The announcement came a week later. Queen Ishara Valkavos, sovereign of the Kevari Concord, had taken a mate. A human mate. The galaxy was shocked. Diplomats scrambled. Scholars debated the implications. But in the private garden where it all began, 2 people from different worlds sat hand in hand, watching the bioluminescent flowers bloom, knowing that they had found something rarer than peace treaties or trade agreements. They had found each other. And that was enough.